Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Most men are drowning in a sea of superficial connections, mistaking constant likes for genuine worth. They're terrified of silence, of being alone. They'd rather suffer the slow decay of meaningless chatter than confront the raw, uncomfortable truth within themselves. This isn't a life. It's an existence, and it's pathetic. Let's be clear, I'm not advocating for isolation as an end goal. I'm advocating for the strength forged in solitude. We've been sold a lie. A narrative that equates happiness with a bustling social calendar with constantly needing validation from others. It's a fabrication designed to keep you docile, dependent, and easily controlled. A crowded life isn't necessarily a full life. In fact, it's often a distraction from one. The modern man has become a social media puppet, constantly performing for an audience that doesn't genuinely care, seeking approval from strangers, trading authenticity for fleeting dopamine hits. It's exhausting, it's emasculating, and it's crippling your potential. Because here's the brutal truth: dependency breeds weakness. Constant external validation steals your internal compass. You become a reflection of those around you, a chameleon constantly shifting to fit in, rather than a man rooted in his own unwavering principles. Think of a tree. A tree that's constantly leaning on other trees for support will never develop strong roots. It will always be vulnerable to the storm. The strongest trees stand alone, weathering the elements because they've invested in their own internal structure. You need to be that tree. This isn't about cynicism. It's about reality. The world isn't coming to save you. Nobody is going to hand you purpose or self-respect. You have to build it. And the workshop where that building takes place? It's the quiet, often avoided space of solitude. Now you're likely thinking, but isn't being lonely bad? Society tells you it is. Biology even suggests we're hardwired for connection. And that's true to a point. But there's a crucial difference between healthy connection and neediness. Between genuine friendship and being a parasitic drain on others' energy. We're talking about a deliberate stripping away of superficial dependencies. A conscious choice to prioritize self-development over social obligation. It's a brutal recalibration. A reset. Let's talk about what happens when you start to embrace this. The initial phase is uncomfortable. It's a confrontation with the void. Because for years, you've likely been using other people, their opinions, their time, their approval, to fill that void. To avoid facing your own insecurity, your own fears, your own lack of direction. This is where the real work begins. And it's not glamorous. It requires confronting the demons you've been carefully avoiding. Consider this, the first principle. Radical self-responsibility. You have to accept that you are the architect of your own life. No friends to blame for your failures. No relationships to excuse your stagnation. Just you. Raw. Unfiltered. Accountable. This isn't about cutting off everyone you know overnight. It's about starting to selectively disengage. About consciously choosing to spend time alone, not out of desperation, but out of intention. Start small. Instead of instantly agreeing to every social invitation, ask yourself, does this genuinely contribute to my growth? Does it align with my goals? Or am I doing this out of habit, obligation, or fear of being alone? If the answer is the latter, decline. Period. And here's where it gets powerful. This isn't about losing access to support. It's about becoming your own support system. This brings us to the second core tenet, internal validation. Stop seeking approval from external sources. Define your own values. Set your own standards. Live by your own code. How do you build internal validation? Through consistent action. Through achieving goals no matter how small. Each completed task, each overcome obstacle, chips away at your insecurities and reinforces your self-worth. Every time you resist the urge to seek validation and instead rely on your own judgment, you strengthen your inner core. Don't underestimate the power of small wins. Finish that book you've been putting off. Learn a new skill. Hit the gym. Master a challenging task at work. The point isn't the accomplishment itself, it's the feeling of competence and self-reliance it fosters. Step 1. Create a challenge and conquer it. Set a tangible, achievable goal, then relentlessly pursue it. Make it a non-negotiable. That single win will be more impactful than 100 empty social interactions. But solitude isn't just about productivity. It's also about introspection. It's about understanding yourself on a deeper level. This leads us to the third crucial aspect, self-awareness. When you're constantly surrounded by other people, you're constantly reacting to external stimuli. You don't have time to truly think, to process your emotions, to identify your biases. Solitude provides the space for that. Use it. Journal. Meditate. Spend time in nature. Ask yourself difficult questions. What are your core values? What are your passions? What are your weaknesses? What are you truly afraid of? Be brutally honest with yourself. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. When you understand your own motivations, your own flaws, you become less reactive and more intentional. You become a more complete human being. Now you might be thinking, this sounds lonely. What about genuine connection? And that's fair. The goal isn't to become a social hermit. It's to become someone worthy of genuine connection. Ironically, the more self-sufficient and internally validated you become, the more attractive you are to others. You're no longer seeking to fill a void. You're offering to share a full life. And when you do choose to connect with others, do so with intention. Invest in relationships that are reciprocal, supportive, and aligned with your values. Don't waste your time on energy vampires or those who constantly seek to bring you down. So, to recap, and this isn't a list to tick off, but principles to integrate. Radical self-responsibility. Own your life. Take full accountability for your actions and outcomes. Internal validation. Stop seeking approval from others. Define your own standards and live by them. Self-awareness. Use solitude to understand yourself on a deeper level. Confront your fears and weaknesses. Intentional connection. Invest in relationships that are reciprocal, supportive, and aligned with your values. This isn't easy. It requires discipline. It requires courage. It requires a willingness to confront discomfort. But the rewards are immeasurable. Increased confidence. Unshakable self-worth. A life of purpose. A life lived on your own terms. The world will try to convince you that you need to be constantly connected, constantly validated. It will tell you that loneliness is a disease. Don't believe it. Embrace the silence. Embrace the solitude. Forged in the fires of isolation, you will emerge stronger, more resilient, and more authentically you. Now stop consuming content and start doing. Take one small step today towards cultivating more solitude in your life. Turn off your phone. Cancel a non-essential social engagement. And use that time to work on yourself. And if you're ready to embrace a life of deliberate strength and self-reliance, click that subscribe button. Let's build something real together. Don't just exist. Live.